Digital Arts. Today we're going to be talking about Photopea selection tools. There are three types of selection tools. They are all located under the Move tool in the toolbar. The first type of selection tool, if you click and hold on the second tool under the Move tool, is the rectangle and ellipse select. These select by shape. So let's try them out. If you click on the rectangle, you'll notice that as I drag from the upper left-hand corner down to the lower right-hand corner, it creates a rectangle or square depending on how much I drag. If I use the ellipse select, it creates a selection that's like a circle or oval, again, depending on how far I drag down. One of the secrets to creating a perfect circle and perfect square is if I hold the shift key down, it forces my circle to be like a perfect circle. So let's try it. If I start off with an oval and I want my circle to be a perfect circle, hold down shift, and then as soon as you shift your mouse, it kicks it into a perfect circle. The other keyboard shortcut is a space bar. If you hold the space bar down while you're creating your selection, it allows you to move your selection around. And then as soon as you let go of your space bar again, you can change the size and shape of your selection. So shift allows you to make a perfect shape. Space bar allows you to move your shape around. And then let go of shift or space before you let go of your mouse to keep the selection what you wanted it to be. So for example, if I wanted to cut this cue ball out of this picture, I would, you can kind of guess where you should start dragging it, but more than often, you're probably not going to get right on it. This is where the space bar becomes useful. You can hold on to the space bar, move the selection where you want it to go, and then refine it however you need it to go. If it's still a little off, you can actually move your mouse and see how it turned into a little plus sign. So I can actually move that selection into place. And that looks good to me. So if I use the move tool at this point, I could move this wherever I wanted it to go. If I wanted to put this cue ball into this workspace, all I'd have to do is with the selection made, on my keyboard, click Control and the letter C, then go back to the workspace that I want the selection to be, and click Control and the letter V for paste. And there you go. You can move it into place wherever you want it to be. Now, with your computer, sometimes you might have some of these tools mashed into each other. So just click and hold so that you can pull up any hidden tools to see where they are. But the next selection set that I want to talk about is lasso. The lasso, if you know what a lasso is, it's a rope, and cowboys use it to catch cows or lambs or anyone. So they have to flip out the lasso and throw it to encircle whatever creature they're trying to catch. So if you think about it that way, that's basically why this is called the lasso tool, because you want to encircle whatever the shape it is that you want to grab. So the lasso select is great because if you click and hold, you have to hold your mouse the whole time, but it allows you to freeform your selection wherever you want it to go. The only problem with this tool is if your hand is not very steady, or if you're in a little bit more of a rush, you can see that I missed some little areas here excuse me, where I kind of cut off a little bit of the leg or I missed some of the fur there. So the lasso select, I usually don't really like to use it, but it's there and it's good to know. The other lasso is the polygonal lasso. This is awesome for straight edges. So in this case, the dog's picture is not great because it's not straight. A dog does not have straight edges. But to use this tool, when you click once, it basically starts your selection, and I'm not clicking my mouse at all. I'm just dragging it around. So as you're dragging it around, it's creating a line, and you can change the direction, of course. As soon as you got where you want the straight edge to be, make another click, and then you can keep clicking until you circle back to the beginning. As soon as you circle back to the beginning, it creates that selection. These dotted lines, by the way, are called ants. The third lasso is the magnetic lasso. Now, this one is perfect to grab this dog out of this picture. The magnetic lasso, just like it sounds, acts like a magnet. So it's going to kind of suck itself to the edge of whatever the object is that you're trying to cut out. So just like the polygonal lasso, you want to click once to start it. And as I drag, you notice that it has this little line that kind of keeps wiggling around, and it's grabbing the edge of the dog for me without too much effort. These little boxes that are being created as I drag my mouse are called anchors. Now, as I go around the dog, the slower you go, the more accurate the selection is going to be. But you notice right here where as I go, it's just kind of grabbing some of the background, and it might accidentally put anchors where I don't want an anchor to go. If I don't want an anchor there, just click the backspace on your keyboard and it will delete that anchor. And if it's being really stubborn, you can just click and force an anchor where you want it to go. So just like the other lasso tools, you want to circle back to the beginning. And if it gets really complicated in here, you probably wouldn't be cutting something like this with flowers, or you'd want to find a better picture. But in this case, I would just kind of force it where I want it to go. And then pretty soon it's grabbing on its own again. So this one does take a little bit of patience because, like I said, depending on your picture, um, it might be a little bit more stubborn grabbing. So if you go back to the beginning, you notice the little ants to show that you have a completed selection. If for some reason the ants don't show up and you keep clicking at that beginning where you thought your beginning selection started, if it's not working, just go, keep your mouse at the beginning and double click, and you'll see that the selection will get forced into ants. The last type of selection I want to go over is the magic wand. The magic wand is great for images like this that has a plain color. So the magic wand selects or finds pixels of the same color. So if you see here, if I click here, you'll see that it grabbed all of this blue. These little jagged edges are because right now the tool's really picky. And so there must be some slightly lighter blues or slightly darker blues that's causing the tool to kind of stop here. And then same with little areas here. That's really easy to fix. If you look up in the options bar for the tolerance, a low tolerance means it's going to be really picky, just like it is here. If you raise the tolerance, you don't need to go too crazy. But if you click now, see how it grabs everything. If I use my move tool, you'll get a better sense of how it grabbed that whole background. So the benefit of that is I could remove the background and I could choose my own background to put in back of this dog. Now, if I wanted my selection to be on the dog instead of the background, I have to flip my selection. So to flip my selection, you want to make sure that you have the magic wand selected still and right click on your workspace and click inverse. You can also find inverse up in the menu bar by clicking on select and inverse there. Now that I've inversed it, if I use my move tool, you can see that it has the dog instead of the background. This is great if I wanted to move the dog into another workspace instead of just leaving it here. A couple last things about the selection tools. If you notice when I click my different selection tools, up in the options bar, there are some options that are similar through all of the selection tools. So let me show you what these do. If I have a shape selection and up here, the first icon is called replace. If I have replace selected, anytime I make a selection and then I make another selection, it replaces the first selection with my latest selection. So it removes it all the way. Let's say I want multiple selections. That's where the second icon comes in, which is called Unite. If I select Unite, now every time I make a selection, it's going to add that selection to it. Anytime I have a selection made, whatever I do with any of my tools only affects that selection. So you can see that as I paint, it's only affecting the selection, nothing around it. Now, if I want to subtract from my selection, that's the third option here. I can create a little hole in my selections. I can change the edging of my selections. And again, if I were to use my brush, it affects that new selection. You can see that it created a hole in there. The other tool that is common to all the selections are the feathering option. So feathering is really awesome because if you have a 0 pixel feathering, when I create my selection and move it, you'll see that the shape is very crisp. So that's like using a really nice sharp pair of scissors. If I increase my feathering a little bit and then make my selection, you'll notice that the selection looks a little bit rounded, but it's not that it will round it. If I move it, you'll notice now it is in the shape of a rectangle, but the edge of my selection is very feathery or soft. So that's what feathering does. One last thing about the selection tools. If I don't want a selection anymore, I can either double click somewhere, depending on what tool I have, or easier than that, I can just on my keyboard click Control and the letter D. And you can see in the history it says deselect. You can also deselect by again going up to the menu bar, clicking on select and deselect here. So the one great thing about using selections is that allows you to move something from one workspace to another. So for example, let's say I want to move this dog to this image. So let's say I already used my lasso to select around the dog and you can see the ants around him. It's really easy. Just click Control C to copy, then click on the workspace that you want it to go to and click Control V. And now you have your other dog there. Later on, we'll show you how to manipulate the letter layers separately and things like that. But for now, I just wanted to show you how to use the different types of selection tools. If you have any questions about the selection tools, just let me know. Have a good day.